so now we're going to look at our first example of a two-sample t-test. The bad news is this is one of those problems where you're given raw data, so we'll have some graphing to do on this one. So here are the saturated fat content in grams for several pizzas sold by two national chains. Be sure that in checking the conditions, you plot both sets of data. Is there evidence that brand D has higher saturated fat content than brand PJ? I wonder what the D and the PJ stand for. I don't know. All right, so let's start this out. I'm going to start off by saying let mu subscript D equal the average saturated fat grams for brand D. And obviously I'm going to let mu PJ equal the same for brand PJ. And then I'm going to say my null hypothesis is the average fat grams for brand D is the same as the average fat grams for brand PJ, always equal. The alternative hypothesis is going to be mu subscript D is greater than mu subscript PJ because it says, is there evidence that D is higher than PJ? Okay, so now that was nice and easy for stating the hypotheses. All right, now the plan phase. If at any moment during the plan phase you need to pause and get this data entered into your calculator, do so, press pause and come back, because you need to be practicing making sure you can remember how to put the data in, how to make a histogram, and how to describe that histogram. But, I understand if you might just be watching along with the work that I'm going to do. So this plan phase may take a few minutes. Okay, so let's see here. Plan. Are both of these samples random? No, it doesn't say so. So I'm going to say something like this. Although these pizzas from both brands are not given as random, maybe they are still representative of each population. So we've identified that the random condition may not be there. Okay. The next thing I need to say is that there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. The 20 from brand D is greater than 10% of all, I'm certain. And the, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. And the 15 from brand PJ is less than 10% of all pizzas ever made there. I'm pretty certain of that if I know what the D and the PJ are standing for. Now, unfortunately, what you need to do is you need to provide both graphs and you need to describe them. Now, of course, I'll just turn on my camera here for a second and just show you what I see on the screen. So let's see here. Let me access my camera and just kind of show you what I see on the screen. So I took a moment to enter the data into the calculator. And right now, I see the brand D histogram. That's way too many bars. So I'm going to menu, plot properties, histogram properties, bin settings, equal bin width. I'm going to make it go by 2s starting at 1. Now if I drag that down, I think we could see that the distribution of the saturated fat grams from brand D is roughly symmetric with no outliers. Okay, so I'd have to provide that picture and write that sentence. Okay, then brand PJ, it looks like it's got some right skew, but it doesn't look as though it's necessarily strong skew. So I would want to provide that picture, and I would want to say, although the distribution of the fat grams for brand PJ is slightly skewed to the right, it is not strongly skewed, so the conditions for the 2-sample t-test are met. Go back to it. That's what I'd have to draw, and that's what I'd have to describe. Okay, now back to the calculator. I'm going to let the calculator run the 2-sample t-test, but I'm going to play the game. Okay, so to run the 2-sample t-test, just like you've always known how, I'm going to menu, nope, wrong thing. Okay, I'm going to menu, what's going on? Oh, I know what's going on. I've got to be opening a calculator page. So I want to add a calculator page, Menu, statistics, stat tests, 2-sample t-test. Okay, now this time I have data, so I want to leave that as data and say okay. Okay, now list 1, list 2. Well, you know how we listed in our work. Let's see, if I go back to it, sorry about all this, my first, PJ second. So when I go back to the calculator, I want to say that my list 1 is brand D and my list 2 is brand PJ. Leave both of these frequencies at 1 and 1. Oh, I'm so sorry for this. Don't know why that just happened. Leave that at 1 and 1. And then we need to change the alternative to the greater than. Now you see down here it says pooled. Just always keep that at no. All right, when you click OK, you'll see that if you scroll, you're given the t-score you need, you're given the p-value you need. I think we'll just call that 0. You're given the degrees of freedom. You're given the 2 means and the 2 standard deviations. And so all we need to do now is just go back and play the game. So let's see if we're going to... I'm looking at my screen, as maybe you are too, and I see that the calculator's telling me that X bar for brand D, X bar for brand D is 11.25 grams. It's telling me that X bar for PJ is 6.53 grams. So I want to play the game. X bar D minus X bar PJ. I've got to grab my own calculator just to get that, so if you'll give me just a minute. Let's see. My calculator says that 11.25 minus 6.53 is 4.72 grams. Okay, so that's a difference of 4.72 grams. So we want to know, as we were expecting the difference to be 0, we got the difference to be 4.72. And so here's that p-value that we're looking for. And essentially the calculator screen told me that the p-value was 0.000016. I think I'll just call that 0. Now, you'd be inclined to just write your conclusion because you know what it is, but you've got to keep playing the game. You've got to show them the standard error of x bar d minus x bar pj, which is equal to the square root of the variance of brand D. Well, the calculator is showing me that the standard deviation for brand D is 3.19. So I got to take 3.19 squared over, well, we had a sample size of 20 for brand D. And then the calculator is showing me that the standard deviation for brand PJ is 2.59. So 2.59 squared over 15. So I'll leave that to you. You have to play the game. Because then you got to come over here and say that you know how to calculate T. T equals 4.72 minus 0 divided by that standard error that I'm leaving to you. You gotta play the game. Okay? Now, I think we can all conclude that since the p-value is less than the alpha level, I reject the null hypothesis. There is evidence that brand D has higher saturated fat compared to brand PJ. And of course, I tend to like brand PJ a little bit better anyway, so kind of happy to hear that. So on the next video, we'll do yet another example right here about resting pulse rates. Just don't want to overwhelm you on each video.